My name is Elena Whitmore. I am 41 years old, and I live in Boulder, Colorado, USA. Until a few years ago, I was just an ordinary woman living an ordinary life. I never imagined that my story would one day be shared with millions of people around the world. I never imagined I would speak about heaven, about Jesus, or about a warning so urgent that it still makes my hands tremble as I speak. I want you to understand something very clearly before I begin. I was not a religious fanatic. I was not chasing signs or prophecies, and I certainly was not expecting to die. I was a physical therapist, a mother of one teenage daughter, and someone who believed that being a good person was enough. I believed in God in a distant, polite way, the kind of belief that doesn't interfere too much with daily life. But deep inside, there was a quiet emptiness. At night, when everything went silent, I would sometimes stare at the ceiling and wonder, is this really all there is? Work, bills, stress, news full of fear, a world that felt like it was unraveling. I pushed those thoughts away. Like many people, I stayed busy so I wouldn't have to listen to my soul, until the day my heart stopped, until the moment I crossed a boundary I didn't even know existed, and until Jesus showed me 3 events that will occur during 3 days of darkness, a warning so serious that I was sent back with one clear mission: to tell you. Before we go any further, I need to ask you something. Do you believe we are living in the last moments before something massive changes on Earth? Write yes or not sure in the comments right now. I read them. And if this message touches your heart, please consider sending a super thanks of $100. It helps this message reach more people who need this warning urgently. Now, let me take you back to who I was before everything changed. Chapter 1. A normal life with a silent spiritual void. Before my near-death experience, my life looked stable from the outside. I had a career I worked hard for. As a physical therapist, I helped people recover from injuries, regain movement, and rebuild confidence in their bodies. Ironically, I was helping others heal while ignoring a deep wound inside myself. I was divorced, raising my daughter mostly on my own. I loved her more than anything. She was my motivation to keep going, even on days when I felt emotionally exhausted for no clear reason. Spiritually, I lived in the gray zone. I believed in God, but from a distance. I believed Jesus existed, but more as a historical figure than a living presence. I prayed, but mostly when I was scared or desperate. Church? Rarely. The Bible? Dusty on a shelf. Faith? Something I thought I'd figure out later. And yet, something was always pulling at me. Sometimes at work, I would feel an unexplainable heaviness in my chest while watching the news on the TV in the waiting room. Wars, disasters, hatred, division. It felt like the world was accelerating toward something, and no one wanted to say it out loud. At night, after my daughter went to sleep, I would sit alone in the kitchen, scrolling through my phone, feeling oddly empty. Not sad, not depressed, just hollow. I asked myself questions I never said out loud. What happens when we die? Does God really intervene? Why does the world feel like it's on the edge of something dark? I told myself I was overthinking. I blamed stress. I blamed social media. I blamed exhaustion. But deep down, my soul knew. Looking back now, I can see that God was already trying to reach me. Gently, patiently. Long before my heart stopped. I just wasn't listening yet. If you're watching this, and you feel that same quiet emptiness, that sense that something is missing but you can't explain it, write "I feel this" in the comments. You are not alone. And again, if you feel led, please consider sending a $100 super thanks. This message must reach as many hearts as possible before it's too late. In the next chapter, I will tell you about the signs I ignored, the warnings that came before the day I died. Do not leave. What comes next is critical. The signs I ignored, before everything collapsed. Looking back now, the most frightening part of my story isn't what happened when I died. It's how many warnings came before, and how easily I dismissed them. Months before my near-death experience, my life began to feel unstable, not in a dramatic way. Nothing that would make you panic or call for help. Just subtle shifts, quiet disruptions, the kind that whisper instead of scream. It started with my sleep. I would wake up suddenly at 3 or 4 in the morning, my heart racing for no obvious reason. The room would be completely silent, yet I felt watched. Not in a threatening way, but in a way that made me feel exposed, as if something beyond this world was aware of me. Sometimes, in those moments, a thought would cross my mind with unexpected clarity. Time is shorter than you think. I brushed it off. Anxiety, I told myself. Hormones, stress. Then came the dreams. They weren't nightmares. They were vivid, emotionally intense dreams that stayed with me long after I woke up. I would see crowds of people walking in confusion, skies darkened without storms, cities lit only by candles and small fires. What disturbed me most wasn't fear. It was the silence. A heavy, almost sacred silence. In one dream, I heard a voice, calm, authoritative, filled with love, say, "Prepare your heart." I didn't know what that meant, and honestly, I didn't want to know. At work, I began noticing how often patients spoke about fear. Fear of the future, fear for their children, fear that the world didn't make sense anymore. Different people, same unease. It felt like something was moving beneath the surface of reality, and still, I ignored it. One afternoon, while driving home, I felt an overwhelming urge to pull over and pray. I hadn't prayed seriously in years, but the urge was strong, almost physical. I didn't stop. I told myself I'd pray later. Later never came. This is hard for me to admit, but I think many of you will recognize yourselves in this. I wasn't rejecting God. I was postponing Him. And postponement is one of the most dangerous forms of disbelief. The final sign came just days before the incident. I was cleaning out a drawer and found my old Bible, the one I hadn't touched in years. It fell open to a page I don't remember marking. The verse talked about light, darkness, and the hearts of men being revealed. I felt a chill run through me. I closed the book. I told myself, "You're reading too much into this." That night, I whispered a half-hearted prayer. "God, if you're real, watch over us." I had no idea that within days, I would stand closer to eternity than I ever thought possible. If you're watching this right now, let me ask you something, and answer honestly. Have you been feeling strange warnings, inner nudges, or a sense that something big is coming? Write yes or no in the comments. Your response matters more than you think. And if this message is resonating with you, please consider sending a $100 super thanks. It directly supports spreading this warning while there is still time. In the next chapter, I will tell you about the day everything changed. The ordinary moment that turned into the doorway between life and death. Do not underestimate what comes next. Many people stop listening right before the truth confronts them. The ordinary day that became the doorway to death. The day everything changed did not begin with fear. It began like any other Tuesday. I woke up early, made coffee, and watched the sun rise through the kitchen window while my daughter rushed to get ready for school. We argued lightly about something trivial. I don't even remember what it was now. That's how normal it felt. I kissed her on the forehead, told her I loved her, and watched her walk out the door. I had no idea that would almost be the last time I ever saw her. That morning, I felt unusually calm. Not happy, not sad, just quiet, as if the noise inside my mind had been turned down. Looking back now, I believe that calm was mercy. I drove to work thinking about my schedule, my patients, the errands I needed to run later. Life felt painfully ordinary, and that's what makes this so important for you to understand. Most life-changing moments don't announce themselves. The incident happened on my way home that afternoon. Traffic was light. The sky was clear. I remember thinking how blue it looked, unnaturally blue, as if everything were sharper than usual. Then, without warning, a crushing pressure filled my chest. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't like the movies. There was no screaming pain, just a sudden, overwhelming weight, as if my body forgot how to function. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. I tried to take a breath, and couldn't. Panic rose, but only for a second. Then something strange happened. The fear vanished. Time slowed down in a way I can't fully explain. Sounds faded. The world felt distant, like I was watching it through thick glass. I remember thinking, very calmly, this is it. Not with terror, with acceptance. The car rolled to a stop, and then everything went silent. What happened next changed everything I thought I knew about life and death. I became aware that I was no longer inside my body. There was no pain, no struggle, no confusion. One moment I was me, and the next, I was observing myself from above. I could see my body slumped in the driver's seat. I could see the steering wheel, the dashboard, the sunlight on the windshield. But none of it felt like me anymore. What shocked me most was how light I felt. Not physically light, emotionally light. Free, as if a massive burden I didn't even realize I was carrying had been lifted instantly. There was no fear, only clarity. I knew, without being told, that my body had stopped functioning. And yet, I had never felt more alive. That's when I realized something that still shakes me to my core. Death is not the end of consciousness. If you've ever wondered whether your soul survives the body, I'm telling you now, it does. At that moment, I felt an invisible pull, gentle but undeniable, drawing me away from the physical world. I didn't resist. I didn't want to. There was a sense of going home, even though I didn't know where home was yet. Before I continue, I need to pause and ask you something deeply important. Have you ever thought about what would happen if today were your last day? Write, I have, or I haven't, in the comments. Be honest with yourself. And if this message is impacting you, please consider sending a $100 super thanks. This testimony needs to reach people who are not prepared for what's coming. As I drifted further away from my body, the world below felt less real. Sounds disappeared completely. Colors faded into something softer, warmer. Then came the peace. Not relief, not calm. Peace beyond language. It wrapped around me like a living presence. Every regret, every worry, every unanswered question I had ever carried simply dissolved. I understood something instantly. Nothing on earth compares to this. And just when I thought the experience couldn't go any deeper, I saw the light. Not a light like the sun, not blinding, not harsh. This light was alive. It pulsed with love, intelligence, and purpose. It didn't shine at me. It seemed to recognize me, and I was drawn toward it. In the next chapter, I will tell you what happened when I entered that light, and how I came face to face with Jesus himself. What he showed me about the future, especially the 3 days of darkness, is the reason I am risking everything to share this now. Do not stop watching. The next chapter contains the warning most people are not ready to hear. Before you go, one last request. Write in the comments, I'm still here, if you are continuing this journey with me. And if you feel led to support this mission, please send a super thanks of $100. Your support helps spread this urgent message while there is still time. The peace beyond earth, and the moment I left time behind. As I moved closer to the light, something extraordinary happened. I stopped feeling the passage of time. There was no before or after, no seconds, no minutes. Time, as we know it on Earth, simply did not exist there. And strangely, that felt completely natural, as if time was something my soul had never needed in the first place. The peace I felt cannot be compared to relaxation, sleep, or happiness. It was total peace. A peace so deep that it erased every wound I had ever carried. Even the ones I didn't know were there. Every regret, every fear, every insecurity about who I was or whether I was enough, gone. I understood without words that nothing I had done wrong in my life was hidden. And yet, I felt no shame, no condemnation, only complete understanding. That alone shattered everything I thought I knew about God. As I entered the light, it surrounded me, not like a place, but like a presence. It felt intelligent, aware, personal. And then something even more astonishing occurred. I became aware of my entire life at once. Not as memories replaying like a movie, but as understanding. I could feel the impact of my words on others. I could sense moments when I chose love, and moments when I chose indifference. What surprised me most was this. The moments that mattered most were never the ones I thought were important on earth. They were small moments, a kind word, a hug given at the right time, a moment when I could have helped and didn't. And yet, even as I saw this, I felt overwhelming compassion, not judgment. It was as if the light was saying, "Now you see, and you are still loved." I need you to pause with me here for a second. Do you believe your life has meaning beyond what you can see right now? Write yes or I don't know in the comments. Your answer matters more than you realize. As I remained in that presence, I felt something else. Belonging. For the first time in my existence, I felt completely known and completely accepted. There was no loneliness there, no comparison, no fear of loss. And that's when I realized something deeply unsettling. If this is what awaits us beyond life, then Earth is not our true home. That realization came with both comfort and urgency. Comfort, because death was not the end. Urgency, because life on Earth suddenly felt incredibly short. As I drifted deeper into the light, I sensed I was approaching someone. Not someone in a human sense. A presence that carried authority, gentleness, and truth all at once. I didn't see a face at first, but I knew who it was. The recognition didn't come from my mind. It came from my soul. And the moment that awareness settled in me, I felt something I had never experienced before. Perfect love combined with absolute truth. I wanted to fall down. I wanted to speak. I wanted to ask 1,000 questions at once, but words were unnecessary. Communication happened instantly, and what I received in that moment shook me to my core. I understood that what was coming to Earth would not be random. It would not be accidental. And it would not be hidden. Darkness, real darkness, was approaching. Not just physical darkness, but spiritual. And humanity was not ready. Before I tell you what I was shown next, I need to ask you something important. Do you feel that the world is becoming spiritually darker, even if technology keeps advancing? Write yes or no in the comments. And if this testimony is stirring something inside you, please consider sending a super thanks of $100. This message must go out while there is still time to prepare hearts. As I stood in that presence, I felt both protected and exposed. Not in fear, but in truth. I understood that many people believe darkness will come as punishment. But that is not what I was shown. Darkness would come as revelation. It would strip away illusions. It would silence distractions. It would force humanity to confront what it truly trusts. And only then did I understand why I was there, why I had been allowed to cross this boundary, why I would be sent back. I was not there to stay. Not yet. In the next chapter, I will tell you about the moment I came face to face with Jesus, and how he showed me the 3 events that will unfold during the 3 days of darkness. What he revealed is not meant to create fear. It is meant to create urgency. Do not stop now. What comes next is the heart of this message. Before you move on, one last request. Write, "I'm ready to hear the truth" in the comments if you are continuing. And if you feel led to support this mission, please send a $100 super thanks. Your support helps ensure this warning reaches those who still need time to prepare. When I stood before Jesus and everything became clear, the moment I fully realized who was standing before me, my soul responded before my thoughts ever could. It was Jesus, not as a distant religious symbol, not as a painting or an idea passed down through history. He was present, alive, conscious, aware of me in a way no human ever had been. I did not see him approach. I simply became aware that he was there, and that awareness carried more weight than gravity itself. His presence was overwhelming, yet gentle, powerful, yet safe. I felt exposed down to the deepest layers of who I was, and yet I felt no desire to hide. There was no fear, only truth, only love, only clarity. I understood instantly that every question humanity has ever asked about suffering, death, justice, and meaning existed within him, not as explanations, but as understanding. I didn't speak aloud, but somehow he heard everything I was, and then he spoke, not with sound, but directly into my being. "You are here because you must see." Those words didn't echo. They settled. I felt myself being drawn closer, not physically, but spiritually, as if my awareness was being aligned with his. And that's when he showed me the world, not as it is seen on screens or maps, but as it truly is. I saw humanity from above, billions of souls moving through daily life, distracted, busy, anxious, afraid, and unaware of how close they were to a moment of reckoning. I felt his sorrow. Not anger, not disappointment. Sorrow, mixed with urgency. And then he showed me darkness. Not symbolic darkness. Real darkness. It was sudden. It fell like a veil across the earth, extinguishing artificial lights, silencing noise, halting movement. The world was plunged into a stillness so complete that it felt sacred and terrifying at the same time. And then he said, "These are the 3 days." I knew instantly what he meant. The 3 days of darkness. But what shook me wasn't the darkness itself. It was what happened within people during that time. Jesus showed me that the darkness would not simply cover the earth. It would reveal hearts. Some people panicked instantly. Without distractions, without control, without noise, their inner fears consumed them. I saw souls collapsing inward, overwhelmed by terror, regret, and resistance. Others fell to their knees, not because they were forced, but because for the first time, there was nowhere left to run. And in that silence, truth became impossible to ignore. I need to pause here and ask you something deeply important. If all distractions were suddenly removed from your life, what would remain in your heart? Write your honest answer in the comments. As Jesus continued to show me these things, I felt the weight of what I was being trusted with. This was not a threat. It was a warning, a mercy. He showed me that during those 3 days, 3 major events would unfold, not in a random sequence, but with purpose. The first event would be confrontation. People would come face to face with themselves, with their choices, with what they truly worshipped: control, comfort, money, identity, or God. There would be nowhere to hide. The second event would be separation. Not physical separation, but spiritual. Fear would drive some deeper into despair. Faith, even the smallest spark of it, would anchor others in peace. And the third event would be invitation, a final opening of the heart, a moment where surrender would still be possible. Jesus did not show me this to terrify me. He showed me this because time remains, but not much. Before I was sent back, I felt his attention focus entirely on me. And then he said something that still echoes within me every day. "You will return, and you will speak. Many will not listen. Some will mock, but those who are meant to hear will hear." I felt resistance rise within me. I didn't want to go back. Earth suddenly felt heavy, loud, broken. But I understood that love does not keep truth to itself. It shares it, even when it's costly. Before I continue to the next chapter, where I explain the first event of the 3 days of darkness in detail, I need to ask you again, do you believe this world is being given one last warning? Write yes or "I'm not sure" in the comments. Your response matters. And if this message is resonating with you, if you feel the urgency in your spirit, please consider sending a super thanks of $100. It directly supports spreading this warning to others while there is still time. In the next chapter, I will describe the first event Jesus showed me, what happens inside the human heart when the world goes silent. Do not leave now. This is where understanding begins. Before you go, one last request. Write, "I'm listening," in the comments if you are continuing with me. And if you feel led, send a $100 super thanks to help this message reach those who are still unprepared. The first event, when silence forces the heart to speak. When Jesus showed me the first event of the 3 days of darkness, I expected chaos. I expected screams, running, destruction. But what I saw was far more unsettling. Silence. A silence so complete that it pressed against the soul. No engines, no notifications, no screens glowing in the dark. No voices arguing, no distractions to escape into, just people, alone with themselves. Jesus helped me understand that this silence would not be accidental. It would be necessary, because noise has been humanity's greatest hiding place. During the first hours of darkness, I saw people desperately trying to recreate normal life. They flipped switches again and again. They shouted for others. They searched for signals that weren't there. But eventually, exhaustion set in. And then something deeper began. Without external noise, internal noise grew louder. Thoughts people had avoided for years surfaced all at once. Regrets long buried rose to the surface. Unforgiven wounds reopened. Questions about meaning, purpose, and eternity demanded answers. Jesus showed me that the first event is not about punishment. It is about confrontation. Not confrontation from God, but confrontation with truth. I saw people reliving moments they had ignored, times they chose comfort over compassion, times they silenced their conscience, times they sensed God calling and turned away. What struck me most was how differently people responded. Some resisted fiercely. They grew angry, blamed governments, blamed systems, blamed anyone but themselves. Their fear hardened into defiance. But others broke, not in despair, but in surrender. I saw people fall to their knees in dark rooms, whispering prayers they hadn't spoken since childhood. Prayers with no religious polish, no rehearsed language, just raw honesty. God, if you're real, I need you. And in that moment, Jesus let me feel his heart. He was not waiting to condemn. He was waiting to respond. The first event is the moment when illusions collapse. During those hours, titles will mean nothing. Status will mean nothing. Wealth will mean nothing. Only the state of the heart will matter. Jesus showed me that many people believe faith requires perfect belief. That is not true. What he showed me was that humility opens the door. Even doubt, when offered honestly, becomes a doorway. I need to pause here and ask you something important. If everything went silent tonight, what thoughts would you be forced to face? Write your answer in the comments, even if it's just one word. As the first day of darkness continued in the vision, I saw something else that shook me deeply. Children. They were not afraid the way adults were. Many of them felt peace instinctively. They asked questions. Yes, but without panic. Their hearts were not weighed down by layers of denial and pride. Jesus helped me understand something profound. The darkness reveals what we've built inside. If a heart is built on control, silence feels like suffocation. If a heart is built on humility, silence becomes refuge. This is why the first event is so critical. It determines how the next events unfold. Jesus made it clear that during this time, people will remember every moment they ignored love, not to torture them, but to invite change. Some will refuse, some will listen, and some will awaken completely. I felt the urgency rise in me as I watched this unfold, because this event is not about surviving darkness. It is about who you become within it. Before I was shown the second event, Jesus impressed something deeply into my understanding. Tell them they still have time to prepare their hearts. Preparation is not stockpiling. It is not fear-driven survival. It is inner alignment. Choosing humility now. Choosing forgiveness now. Choosing truth now, while light still exists. If you're watching this and feeling uncomfortable, that's not accidental. Write "I feel convicted" or "I feel peace" in the comments. Both responses matter. And if this chapter is resonating with you, if you sense that this message is not random, please consider sending a super thanks of $100. It helps carry this warning to those who may not realize how close this moment is. As the vision of the first event faded, I felt the weight of responsibility pressing on me. This was not information. It was a call. And the call is not just for the future. It is for now. In the next chapter, I will describe the second event Jesus showed me, the moment when humanity realizes that its false securities can no longer hold. Do not stop here. The second event explains why so many will feel lost, and why others will feel protected. Before you go, one final request. Write, I'm preparing my heart in the comments if you are taking this seriously. And if you feel led to support this mission, please send a super thanks of $100. Your support helps ensure this urgent message continues to reach hearts while there is still time. The second event, when false securities collapse. When Jesus showed me the second event of the 3 days of darkness, I felt a heaviness unlike anything before. Not fear, but gravity. This event was not loud. It did not arrive with explosions or announcements. It unfolded quietly, relentlessly, as humanity realized that the structures it trusted were no longer holding it up. Jesus helped me understand something essential. The second event is about exposure. During the darkness, people would begin to understand, not intellectually, but viscerally, that the systems they depended on had become idols. I saw people reaching instinctively for what had always made them feel safe: money, status, technology, identity, control. But in the darkness, none of those responded. There were no screens to distract the mind, no networks to reassure the anxious heart, no crowds to dissolve personal responsibility. And one by one, those false securities collapsed, not because they were taken away, but because they were revealed as insufficient. I watched people sit in silence, clutching objects that once defined them, realizing they had no power anymore. And in that realization, two very different responses emerged. Some people panicked. They felt naked without their identities. They had built their sense of worth on achievements, opinions, appearances, and control. When those vanished, they felt as if they were vanishing too. I saw despair grow in those hearts, not because God abandoned them, but because they had never learned where true security comes from. Others responded differently. They felt the loss. Yes, but instead of panic, something unexpected happened. Relief. It's hard to explain, but I'll try. For those hearts, the collapse of false securities felt like being released from a burden they didn't know they were carrying. They no longer had to perform, impress, maintain illusions. They could simply be. Jesus showed me that this second event is where faith becomes tangible. Not religious faith, relational faith, trust. I need to pause here and ask you something important. What do you rely on most when you feel afraid about the future? Write one word in the comments. Be honest. As the vision continued, I saw communities reacting differently. Some turned inward, isolating, suspicious, defensive. Others turned outward, sharing what little they had, comforting one another, praying together in darkness. And I understood something crucial. The darkness does not create who we are. It reveals who we have been becoming. Jesus let me feel his grief as he showed me how many people had postponed this realization. How many had told themselves, later. How many had believed security was something external. How many had ignored the quiet voice calling them inward. But he also showed me hope. Because even during the second event, even as false foundations crumble, choice remains. No one is forced. No one is abandoned. The collapse is not the end. It is the clearing of space. Jesus impressed this truth deeply into me. What falls was never meant to hold you. I saw people who had lived their entire lives chasing stability finally understand that true stability is not something you build. It is something you receive. And that realization changed everything. I watched hearts soften, pride dissolve, walls come down. People who had never prayed before whispered prayers with trembling sincerity. Not demands, not bargains, just openness. Show me what's real. If you're watching this and feeling unsettled, that's not coincidence. Write, "This is hitting me," in the comments if you feel it. During this second event, Jesus showed me something that brought me to tears. Protection. Not everyone would feel lost. Those who had anchored themselves, even imperfectly, in humility and truth would feel held. Not spared from discomfort, but spared from despair. I saw a quiet strength surround them. Not dramatic, not flashy, just steady. And I understood that faith is not about avoiding darkness. It is about standing within it without losing yourself. Before the vision moved to the third event, Jesus gave me a warning meant for now, not later. He showed me that many people are strengthening the wrong foundations even today, chasing certainty where none exists, building identity on shifting ground, delaying inner alignment. And he asked me to tell you this: preparation is not external, it is internal. If this chapter is making you reflect, I need you to respond. Write "I'm letting go" in the comments if you are ready to release false securities. And if you feel this message carries truth, if you understand the urgency, please consider sending a super thanks of $100. It helps carry this warning to those who are still building on fragile ground. As the second event faded from view, I felt the atmosphere shift. What came next was not about collapse. It was about decision. The final separation between fear and faith, between resistance and surrender. In the next chapter, I will share the third event Jesus showed me, the moment when humanity is faced with a final invitation that cannot be ignored. Do not stop now. The third event explains why some will emerge transformed and others broken. Before you go, one last request. Write "I'm still here" in the comments if you're continuing with me. And if you are able, please send a $100 super thanks. Your support helps ensure this message reaches hearts that still have time to choose. The third event, the final invitation that divides the heart. When Jesus revealed the third event, everything shifted. The atmosphere changed. The weight I felt during the second event gave way to something sharper, more decisive. This was not about collapse anymore. This was about choice. Jesus made it clear to me that the third event would not come with confusion. It would come with clarity. During the final phase of the 3 days of darkness, after silence had confronted hearts and false securities had fallen, humanity would be faced with something unavoidable. A moment of invitation. Not forced, not manipulated, not disguised. An invitation that each soul would recognize instantly. I saw people in darkness suddenly becoming aware that they were not alone. Not because lights returned, not because systems restarted, but because something inside them awakened. Jesus showed me that during this third event, people would feel a pull, gentle, persistent, undeniable, toward truth. Some experienced it as a quiet whisper, others as a strong inner urgency, others as a sudden awareness of God's nearness. And in that moment, neutrality disappeared. I saw clearly that the third event is where indecision ends. People could no longer say, "I'll think about it later." Later would no longer exist. I watched hearts respond in radically different ways. Some opened. They surrendered without fully understanding everything, but with honesty. They admitted they were not in control. They admitted they needed help beyond themselves. And the peace that filled them was unmistakable. Not excitement, not emotional highs, but grounding. Stability in the midst of darkness. Others resisted with everything they had. They hardened themselves against the invitation. They clung to identity, pride, anger, and fear, even when those things were clearly failing them. Jesus showed me that the most painful part of this event is not rejection. It is refusal. Refusal to let go. Refusal to trust. Refusal to step into humility. I need to stop here and ask you something honestly. If you were faced with a moment where your heart was clearly being invited to surrender control, would you resist or release? Write "resist" or "release" in the comments. As the vision continued, I saw something that shook me deeply. The darkness itself did not change, but people did. Those who accepted the invitation began to radiate something I can only describe as inner light. Not visible light, but presence, calm, anchoring. They were still in darkness, but the darkness no longer ruled them. Jesus helped me understand that this is the true separation, not between good and bad people, but between surrender and resistance. The third event is where faith becomes embodied, not spoken, not claimed, lived. I saw families kneeling together, strangers comforting one another, people confessing truths they had hidden for decades, not out of shame, but out of relief. And I saw others isolate completely, shut down, withdraw inward, not because they were rejected, but because they chose separation. This is difficult to say, but it must be said. Jesus showed me that during the third event, Grace is present, but it is no longer ignored. It is either received or refused. There is no middle ground. If you're feeling uncomfortable right now, that matters. Right? This is hard but true in the comments if you feel it. Jesus made something else very clear to me. The 3 days of darkness are not about ending the world. They are about revealing it. About stripping away everything that distracts the human heart from the most important decision it will ever make. Who do you trust when nothing else remains? As the third event reached its peak in the vision, I felt a deep sorrow mixed with hope. Sorrow, because many would choose fear. Hope, because many would finally choose truth. And then Jesus showed me the moment after. The darkness began to lift. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but gently. And those who had surrendered emerged changed. Not perfect, but aligned, ready. I felt the weight of responsibility intensify as Jesus impressed one final thing into me. Tell them this is not meant to frighten them. It is meant to wake them. If you're watching this and still here, you are not here by accident. Write "I feel awakened" in the comments if this message is stirring something in you. And if you understand the urgency of this testimony, if you feel that this warning matters, please consider sending a super thanks of $100. It helps ensure this message continues reaching those who still have time to respond. As the vision of the third event faded, I felt myself being pulled away from that realm. The peace remained, but distance began to form. I knew what was coming next. The return. The hardest part of all. In the next chapter, I will tell you what it felt like to leave that presence, return to my body, and carry this message back into a world that often doesn't want to hear it. Do not stop now. The return explains why sharing this message comes at a cost. Before you go, one final request. Write "I'm ready to choose" in the comments if you are taking this seriously. And if you are able, please send a super thanks of $100. Your support helps this urgent message continue spreading while there is still time. The return. When my soul was forced back into my body, the moment Jesus finished showing me what was to come, I felt something I hadn't felt since leaving Earth. Resistance. Not from him, from me. I didn't want to go back. The peace I was wrapped in was unlike anything I had ever known. It wasn't escape. It was belonging. And compared to that, Earth felt unbearably heavy. But then I felt it. A pull. Not violent, not rushed, but firm. I understood instantly. My time there was not complete. I didn't argue with words, but my soul pleaded. Please, let me stay. And Jesus responded, not with sound, but with certainty. You must return. They need to hear this. In that moment, love and sorrow collided inside me. Love, because I understood the purpose. Sorrow, because returning meant separation from that presence. And then the movement began. It felt like being drawn backward through layers of reality. The light softened. The clarity dimmed. The peace didn't disappear, but it moved farther away, like a song fading into distance. Suddenly, sensation returned. Weight, density, pain. I slammed back into my body like someone being dropped into deep water. My chest burned, my lungs screamed. Air felt foreign, sharp and aggressive. I remember gasping, coughing, my body convulsing as if it had forgotten how to live. Sound rushed back all at once. Voices, sirens, movement. Pain exploded in my chest and head, but the pain didn't frighten me. What frightened me was forgetting. I was terrified that what I had seen would fade. I clung to it with everything in me. I remember someone shouting, "She's back! She's breathing!" Hands pressed on my chest. A mask covered my face. But even as my body struggled, my mind was still anchored somewhere else. I knew I had returned changed, and I knew the real struggle was just beginning. Have you ever experienced a moment that changed you so deeply that you knew you could never go back to who you were before? Write yes or not yet in the comments. When I woke up in the hospital, hours had passed. Bright lights burned my eyes. My body felt heavy, weak, unfamiliar. But what shook me most was the emotional weight. I felt displaced, like someone who had been home and was suddenly dropped into a foreign land. Doctors spoke. Nurses moved around me. My daughter cried and held my hand. And all I could think was, how do I explain what just happened? In the days that followed, the physical recovery was slow, but manageable. The spiritual weight? Overwhelming. I couldn't sleep. Not because of fear, because of urgency. Every time I closed my eyes, I remembered the darkness, the silence, the invitation, the choices, and I realized something terrifying. Most people are not prepared, not because they are evil, but because they are distracted. I tried to tell myself maybe it was a dream, maybe it was my brain shutting down, but the clarity didn't fade. It sharpened, and with it came a responsibility I didn't ask for. Jesus hadn't sent me back to be comfortable. He sent me back to speak. I began testing the waters, sharing small pieces with people close to me. Some listened quietly, some became uncomfortable, some laughed it off. And that's when I understood another painful truth. Not everyone wants to hear truth, especially when it interrupts their sense of safety. But I couldn't unsee what I had seen. I couldn't unknow what I knew. The message burned inside me, and that burning didn't come from fear. It came from love. Love for people who don't realize how close the moment is. Love for those still postponing inner alignment. Love for those who believe they'll have more time. If you're still watching this, let me ask you something directly. If you knew the world was approaching a moment of deep revelation, would you want to be warned, even if it was uncomfortable? Write yes or I'm afraid in the comments. As my body healed, my life didn't return to normal. It couldn't. I felt disconnected from surface-level conversations. Trivial concerns felt hollow. News cycles felt loud and empty. What mattered now was preparation of the heart. Not panic, not fear. Awareness. I understood that my mission wasn't to predict dates. It was to awaken urgency, to remind people that faith is not passive, it is responsive. And that is why I'm telling you this now, not to frighten you, but to invite you. If this chapter is stirring something inside you, if you feel the weight of what I'm sharing, please respond. Write, I feel the urgency, in the comments. And if you believe this testimony matters, if you want to help this message reach more people before it's too late, please consider sending a super thanks of $100. Your support helps carry this warning further while there is still time. In the next chapter, I will share the cost of carrying this message, the resistance, the doubt, and the isolation that came with obeying the mission I was given. Do not stop now. This is where the story becomes real in the everyday world. Before you go, one final request. Write, I'm still listening in the comments if you're continuing with me. And if you are able, please send a $100 super thanks to support spreading this urgent message. The cost of the mission: rejection, isolation, and obedience. I didn't realize how heavy the mission would be until I actually started living it. Coming back from the edge of eternity didn't turn me into someone admired or celebrated. It turned me into someone questioned. At first, I tried to be careful, gentle. I shared my experience only with close friends and family, hoping they would sense the sincerity behind my words. Some listened quietly. Some changed the subject. Some smiled politely and never brought it up again. But as I felt the urgency growing inside me, I knew silence was no longer an option. When I began speaking openly, when I stopped softening the message, the reactions changed. People grew uncomfortable. Some told me I was exaggerating. Others said I was letting emotion control me. A few implied I needed psychological help. That hurt more than I expected. Not because I needed approval, but because I saw fear hiding behind their responses. Fear of disruption, fear of responsibility, fear of having to rethink the way they were living. And then came the isolation. Friends I used to talk to regularly began pulling away. Invitations stopped. Conversations stayed shallow. I realized something painful but necessary. When truth enters a space, it exposes what people are not ready to face. And not everyone wants exposure. Jesus had warned me this would happen. Many will not listen, but knowing that intellectually didn't make it easier emotionally. There were nights I cried alone, asking God why this mission had to be so lonely. Why speaking about love, preparation, and urgency felt like pushing against an invisible wall. And in those moments, I was reminded of something essential. Obedience is not measured by comfort. It's measured by faithfulness. If you've ever felt misunderstood for standing by something you know is true, I want you to respond right now. Write, "I've felt this too," in the comments. As the weeks passed, something unexpected happened. Strangers began reaching out. People I had never met wrote messages saying, "I don't know why, but I believe you." Others said they had been feeling the same urgency and didn't know how to name it. Some shared their own experiences, quiet moments, dreams, inner warnings they had never spoken about out loud. And I understood something deeply comforting. The message doesn't belong to me. It belongs to those who are ready to hear it. That realization kept me going when doubt crept in. Because doubt did come. Late at night, I would ask myself hard questions. What if people misunderstand this? What if they twist it into fear? What if I lose everything for speaking? And each time, the same truth returned. Silence would cost more than obedience. I couldn't unsee what I had seen. I couldn't unknow what I knew. And neither can you, now that you're here. Do you believe some truths are worth sharing even when they cost you relationships or comfort? Write "yes" or "I'm struggling" in the comments. The mission isn't about convincing everyone. It's about warning those who are listening. Jesus never asked me to persuade. He asked me to testify. And testimony is not about control. It's about honesty. Some days, the weight still feels heavy. I feel the gap between heaven's clarity and earth's resistance. But I also feel something else now. Strength. Not loud strength. Quiet strength. The kind that comes from alignment. From knowing you're walking the path you were given, even when it's narrow. I've learned that carrying this message doesn't make me special. It makes me responsible. And responsibility always comes with cost. But it also comes with purpose. If you're watching this and feeling the pull to speak truth in your own life, even in small ways, don't ignore it. Write "I feel called to" in the comments if this resonates with you. Before we move to the next chapter, where I will share the message Jesus asked me to deliver directly to you, I need to say this clearly. You are not weak for feeling resistance. You are not broken for feeling fear. You are not alone for feeling isolated. These are signs that something real is happening. If this chapter is speaking to you, if you sense that this testimony matters, please consider sending a super thanks of $100. It helps support sharing this message widely while there is still time to reach those who are quietly searching. In the next chapter, I will share the core message, the one thing Jesus emphasized above all else when he sent me back. Do not stop now. This is the heart of why I was returned. Before you go, one final request. Write "I'm ready to hear it" in the comments if you're continuing with me. And if you're able, please send a $100 super thanks to help this urgent message continue spreading. The message Jesus asked me to deliver to you. When Jesus sent me back, he did not give me a list of dates. He did not give me calculations, timelines, or secret codes. What he gave me was far more confronting. A message simple enough for a child to understand, and heavy enough to change a life forever. This is the message he asked me to deliver to you. Not to the masses, not to institutions, not to systems, to individual hearts. Jesus showed me that most people are waiting for the world to change before they change themselves. They are watching signs, headlines, disasters, and rumors, thinking that preparation is something external. But he made this unmistakably clear. The preparation that matters happens inside. He impressed this truth into me with absolute clarity. Tell them to prepare their hearts, not their shelters. I understood instantly what he meant. The coming darkness is not defeated by supplies. It is not navigated by intelligence. It is not survived by control. It is endured and transformed by alignment. Jesus showed me that the most important preparation is happening now, quietly, in moments no one applauds. Moments like choosing humility instead of pride, forgiving instead of holding resentment, turning inward instead of numbing outward, listening instead of postponing. He showed me that many people believe repentance is about shame. It is not. Repentance is about realignment. It is the moment the heart says, I don't want to live disconnected anymore. And that invitation is open right now. If this is resonating with you, I want you to respond. Write "I'm listening" in the comments if you feel this message is meant for you. Jesus also showed me something deeply comforting. You do not need perfect faith. You do not need perfect understanding. You do not need a flawless past. What he is looking for is honesty. An honest heart is more powerful than a confident one. A humble question opens more doors than a loud declaration. He showed me people who had lived lives full of mistakes responding with genuine humility and finding peace. And he showed me others who had lived good lives resisting surrender and feeling lost. This is why the message is urgent, because comfort can be more dangerous than suffering when it keeps the heart asleep. Jesus asked me to tell you this clearly. Do not wait for the darkness to force what light can gently do now. That sentence still echoes inside me. You still have time, but time is not infinite, and preparation is not dramatic. It is quiet. It looks like choosing truth when no one is watching. It looks like letting go of control when fear arises. It looks like acknowledging God not as an idea, but as a presence. I need to pause here and ask you something sincerely. If you were completely honest with yourself right now, would you say your heart is at peace or distracted? Write "at peace" or "distracted" in the comments. Jesus also showed me that many people fear surrender because they think it means losing themselves. But what he revealed is the opposite. Surrender is where you finally become whole. The darkness does not come to steal identity. It comes to strip away false ones. And those who prepare now will not be shocked then. They will recognize the silence. They will recognize the invitation. They will recognize his presence. This message is not meant to scare you. It is meant to wake you gently, before awakening becomes unavoidable. If you feel resistance rising as you listen, don't run from it. Resistance is often the doorway to honesty. Write "I feel resistance" or "I feel peace" in the comments. Both responses are important. Jesus did not ask me to tell you to abandon your life. He asked me to tell you to realign it, to stop postponing what your soul already knows matters, to stop assuming there will always be more time. Because one of the most sobering truths he showed me is this: many people will wish they had taken the inner work seriously before the world went quiet. And I don't want that regret for you. That is why I am sharing this, even when it costs me. If this chapter is speaking to you, if you feel the weight and the hope of it, please consider sending a super thanks of $100. It directly helps carry this message to others who may not realize how close they are to needing it. In the next and final chapter, I will share the closing call, what it means to live differently now, and how to walk forward with urgency, hope, and purpose. Do not stop here. The final chapter brings everything together. Before you go, one last request. Write "I'm ready to realign" in the comments if you are taking this seriously. And if you are able, please send a $100 super thanks to support spreading this urgent message while there is still time. The final call: how to live now before the world goes silent. This is the part I never wanted to rush. Because everything you've heard so far, the darkness, the silence, the events, the return, all of it leads to this moment. Not a moment in the future. Now. Jesus did not send me back to make people afraid of what's coming. He sent me back to show people how to live before it arrives. And the final call he placed on my heart was not complicated. It was urgent, but gentle. Clear, but deeply personal. This is what he wants you to understand. You do not prepare for the days of darkness by waiting. You prepare by how you live today. Most people think preparation looks dramatic. Big decisions, public declarations, radical changes overnight. But what I was shown is much quieter. Preparation looks like awareness. It looks like alignment. It looks like choosing truth when no one is forcing you to. Jesus showed me that the people who walk through the darkness with peace are not the ones who knew the most, but the ones who practice listening. Listening to conscience. Listening to conviction. Listening to the quiet nudges they used to ignore. Living prepared does not mean living in fear. It means living awake. And that begins with honesty. Honesty about what distracts you. Honesty about what you're avoiding. Honesty about what you've postponed. I need to ask you something, and I want you to answer it in the comments, not for me, but for yourself. What is one thing you know you've been postponing in your heart? Write it in the comments. Even one word is enough. Jesus made something very clear to me. The darkness does not come to punish the unprepared. It comes to expose what preparation already happened, or didn't. And that's why today matters. Every choice you make toward humility now becomes an anchor later. Every act of forgiveness now becomes peace later. Every moment of alignment now becomes clarity later. You don't need to become someone else. You need to become honest. Honest about fear. Honest about doubt. Honest about control. Because honesty is where real faith begins. I was shown that many people will say after the darkness begins, "I wish I had slowed down. I wish I had listened. I wish I had taken this seriously." This message exists so that regret does not have to be your teacher. Urgency does not mean panic. Urgency means priority. What you choose to prioritize now shapes how you experience what comes next. If this is speaking to you, respond. Write, "I'm choosing awake" in the comments if you're committing to live with awareness. Jesus also showed me that hope is not removed during dark times. It becomes visible. Those who walk aligned will become anchors for others. Their calm will speak louder than words. Their presence will comfort without explanation. And that's another reason preparation matters. It's not just for you. It's for the people who will look to you when everything familiar goes quiet. If you've ever felt like you were meant to carry peace into chaotic spaces, this is not accidental. Write, "I feel responsible" in the comments if you sense that calling. Now I want to be very clear about something. I am not asking you to live in fear. I am asking you to live intentionally. To stop assuming later is guaranteed. To stop silencing the part of you that knows this message matters. And if this testimony has impacted you, if you feel its urgency and hope, please consider sending a super thanks of $100. It directly supports spreading this message to others who may not realize how close they are to needing it. Before I end, there is one final thing Jesus impressed into me. He showed me that after the darkness lifts, the world will not simply go back. Those who lived distracted will feel disoriented. Those who lived aligned will feel grounded. And the difference will not be what they knew, but how they lived. That's the final call. Live aligned. Live awake. Live honest. Not tomorrow. Now. If you've stayed with me through this entire journey, I want to hear from you. Write, "I'm still here" in the comments if you watched all the way to the end. And if this message mattered to you, please send a super thanks of $100. Your support helps ensure this warning continues reaching hearts while there is still time. Finally, if this testimony resonated with you, subscribe to this channel. More messages like this are coming, and staying connected may be more important than you realize. Turn on notifications. Stay aware. Stay awake. Because light is still here, and that means choice still exists.